Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be tackling the world of UX design.
Ooh.
Specifically, the crucial phase of low-fidelity prototyping.
Okay.
I think it helps to start with an analogy.
Sure.
Imagine you're building a house.
Right.
You wouldn't just start laying bricks without a blueprint, right?
Definitely not.
Low-fidelity prototyping is like creating that blueprint. But for your digital product,
Yeah.
you can test ideas super quickly and cheaply before you go invest in full-blown development.
Makes sense.
It's a total game changer,
For sure.
especially for those of you out there constantly bubbling with new app or website ideas.
Mm-hmm.
To help us navigate this fascinating world, I've got a UX expert with me,
Happy to be here.
ready to dive in.
Absolutely. There's something almost magical about low-fidelity prototyping.
Yeah.
It allows us to really explore and experiment without getting bogged down in all those tiny details. Think of
Yeah.
it as sketching the big picture before you even pick up a fine-tipped pen.
I love that analogy. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
We're talking about going from that initial spark of an idea to something we can actually test and get feedback on.
Exactly.
Speaking of the process, our listener has shared some fantastic resources
Cool.
that really walk us through this journey.
Okay.
We'll be looking at design thinking,
Uh-huh.
information architecture, user flows, and all that good stuff.
All essential elements to bring a digital product to life.
Right.
I mean, design thinking kind of lays the groundwork,
Yeah.
focusing on understanding the user.
Uh-huh.
Information architecture is like the backbone of the whole thing,
Yeah.
ensuring that everything is nice and organized,
Makes sense.
and user flows.
Yeah.
Well, they map out those paths users take
Yeah.
to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
Think of it as a roadmap,
Okay.
guiding users seamlessly through the product.
Okay. That makes sense. But design thinking can sometimes feel a bit abstract.
Sure.
Could you break it down for me a little bit?
Absolutely.
Maybe even share an example of how it's used in the real world.
For sure. Let's say you're designing a mobile banking app.
Yeah.
The very first stage of design thinking is to empathize.
Okay.
You'd spend time observing how people currently manage their finances,
Mm-hmm.
really understanding their pain points, their frustrations.
Yeah.
Maybe they find it difficult to track their spending or
Right.
transfer money between accounts.
Makes sense.
That empathy phase is what helps you then define the problem.
Gotcha.
People need a more user-friendly way to manage their money on the go.
Okay, so you've empathized with the user. You've defined the problem.
Right.
What comes next?
This is where the fun begins.
Right.
It's the ideate phase.
Okay.
This is when you brainstorm solutions.
Brainstorming, I love it.
You might sketch out different app layouts, experiment with features, explore innovative ways to make mobile banking more intuitive and engaging.
I'm already picturing sticky notes all over the walls.
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of ideas. How do you choose which ones to pursue?
That's where the prototype phase comes in.
Okay.
We build a simple version of the app, maybe using paper or a digital prototyping tool, and then test it out with potential users.
Makes sense.
This helps us figure out which ideas actually work well
Yeah.
and which need further refinement.
So it's all about getting that feedback early and often,
Yes.
rather than waiting till the end to realize you've built something nobody wants.
Exactly.
And the final stage is test.
Yes.
All about observing how people actually use the prototype, gathering feedback, and making further iterations.
It's a cycle.
So design thinking is all about this constant cycle of empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing.
It's a continuous journey, isn't it?
It is. It's always refining and improving based on that user feedback. Speaking of which, let's zoom in on a stage that really stood out in the resources our listeners shared,
Okay.
information architecture, or IA.
IA, the backbone.
It is.
IA is all about making sure a website or app is easy to navigate.
Okay.
Think of it as creating a clear and logical structure for all your content.
Right.
So a well-designed IA ensures that users can find what they need quickly and effortlessly.
Right.
Because nobody wants to get lost in a digital maze, right?
Yeah, nobody wants to be clicking around aimlessly.
Exactly.
So how do you go about creating an effective IA?
One technique is card sorting.
Card sorting.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle
Okay.
where you give users a set of cards
Uh-huh.
representing different pieces of content,
Right.
and you ask them to group them in a way that makes sense to them.
Ah, so you're letting the user tell you how they think about the content.
Yeah.
How they would naturally organize things.
Exactly. And sometimes their groupings can be super surprising.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I once worked on a website redesign for a museum.
Okay.
We assumed visitors would organize exhibits by historical period.
Yeah, makes sense.
But through card sorting, we discovered they were more interested in themes like art and technology or women in history.
Huh.
That insight completely changed our approach to the website's navigation, and it ultimately created a much more engaging experience for visitors.
That's a fantastic example of how card sorting can uncover those hidden user preferences.
It's true.
It's like peeking into their minds and understanding how they think. And another crucial element of IA is the site or app map.
Oh, right.
Think of it as like a blueprint that visually represents the hierarchy and connections between all those pages or screens.
Essential for both designers and developers to make sure there's a consistent and logical structure throughout the product.
It's like having a roadmap for your digital product.
Yes.
Ensuring everybody's on the same page.
Exactly.
Now, before we move on to user flows, you mentioned something intriguing earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Gestalt principles.
Right.
I remember studying those in design school.
Yeah.
But how do they actually apply to IA and UX design as a whole?
Gestalt principles are fundamental to how we visually perceive and organize information.
Okay.
These principles like similarity, proximity, and common region, they help us understand how users will kind of naturally group elements and make sense of visual information.
So, for instance, the principle of proximity suggests that we perceive items placed close together as belonging to the same group.
Exactly.
So if you want users to see certain elements as related, you should group them close together visually.
Exactly. It's all about guiding the user's eye.
Right.
Creating a sense of order and hierarchy on the screen.
Okay, makes sense. And another principle, similarity, suggests that elements that share visual characteristics, like shape, color, or size, are perceived as related.
Right.
So using a consistent style for buttons or icons helps users understand they serve a similar function.
You got it.
And lastly, common region uses visual cues like borders or backgrounds to group elements that are located within the same enclosed area.
Think of tabs on a website.
Okay.
Even if the content within each tab is visually different, the fact that they're enclosed within the same tab structure helps users understand they're all part of the same navigational system.
So Gestalt principles aren't just some kind of like abstract theories. They're really practical tools for creating intuitive and user-friendly designs.
Yeah, it's like using psychology to guide our design choices.
I like that a lot. We've talked about IA.
Right.
But how do we actually map out the user's journey through the product?
Oh, that's where user flows come in.
User flows, okay.
Absolutely. User flows are like a step-by-step guide
Okay.
outlining the path a user takes to complete a specific task within the product.
Okay.
They help us visualize all the steps involved, the decisions users make, the screens they encounter along the way.
So it's less about the overall structure of the product,
Right.
like IA, and more about how a user interacts with it
Yes.
to achieve a very specific goal.
You got. Let's go back to that mobile banking app example.
Okay.
A user flow might map out the steps a user takes to transfer money from their checking account to their savings account.
Makes sense.
It would show all the screens they see, the buttons they click, and any decision points along the way.
So if IA is the blueprint of the house, the user flow is like actually walking through the house
I like that.
and figuring out the best way to get from the kitchen to the living room.
Yeah.
You know, considering all the possible routes and obstacles along the way.
And by mapping out these user flows,
Yeah.
we can identify any potential roadblocks
Right.
or areas where users might get stuck.
Yeah.
It's about ensuring a smooth and intuitive user experience.
Makes sense. Okay, so how do designers actually create these user flows?
Well, there are definitely visual elements involved.
Uh-huh.
We use common shapes like circles, rectangles, diamonds, and arrows to represent different steps and actions.
Okay.
For example, a rectangle might represent a screen, a diamond, a decision point, and an arrow, the flow from one step to the next.
So it's like a visual language for describing the user's journey through the product.
Exactly.
But how do you decide which paths to include in the user flow?
That's where user research and understanding your target audience comes in.
Okay.
We need to consider the most common tasks users will be performing and the different ways they might approach those tasks.
Makes sense.
For instance, some users might prefer to transfer money using a quick transfer option,
Right.
while others might prefer to go through a more detailed process to review their account balances first.
So you're anticipating those different user behaviors
Yeah.
and creating flows that accommodate those variations.
Exactly.
So we've talked about IA and user flows, which provide a really high-level overview of the product and how users navigate through it.
Yeah.
But how do we actually start visualizing the design itself, getting closer to something we can test and interact with?
That's where sketching and wireframing come into play.
Sketching and wireframing.
Think of these as the rough drafts of our designs.
Okay.
Allowing us to quickly explore ideas and test out different layouts before we commit to anything too polished.
I love that idea of not getting bogged down in details too early.
Yeah.
It's like sketching out a rough idea for a painting
Yeah.
before you start mixing colors.
Exactly. And sketching is a fantastic way to start because it's so accessible.
Right.
Anyone can grab a pen and paper
Yeah.
and start visualizing their ideas.
It's a low barrier to entry.
No fancy tools or software required, just your imagination and a willingness to experiment.
Plus, there's something so freeing about sketching.
Yeah.
You know, you're not worried about making things perfect.
Uh-huh.
You're just exploring possibilities.
Absolutely, and that freedom is what makes sketching so valuable in the early stages of the design process.
Makes sense.
It allows for rapid iteration.
Yeah.
You can easily change things around, try out different layouts, and see what works best without investing a lot of time or effort.
Okay, so let's say I'm ready to start sketching.
Cool.
Any tips for a newbie like me?
Sure.
Should I be using specific pens
Right.
or avoiding certain colors?
The beauty of sketching is that there are no hard and fast rules.
Okay.
But a good starting point is to stick to black and white
Okay.
and avoid using colors or adding too much detail.
Uh-huh.
Focus on capturing those core elements of your design
Okay.
and how they relate to each other.
So it's like a visual shorthand
Yeah,
for communicating the key elements of the design without getting distracted by aesthetics.
exactly.
What should I be thinking about as I'm sketching?
Start by identifying those key elements you need to include on each screen or page.
Okay.
This might include things like buttons, text fields,
Images, navigation elements.
Roger.
Then explore different ways to arrange those elements,
Right.
considering factors like visual hierarchy,
Right.
spacing, and flow. Don't be afraid to experiment and iterate.
Yeah.
The goal is to find what feels most intuitive and user-friendly.
Oh, it's a very iterative process
It is.
with lots of sketching, revising, and refining along the way. And once we have those sketches,
Yeah.
how do we actually test them out
Okay.
and see how users interact with them?
That's where paper prototyping comes in.
Paper prototyping.
Yeah, it's precisely. Paper prototyping is a fantastic way to test out your designs before you go digital.
Makes sense.
Essentially, you create physical representations of your digital product.
Okay.
Using paper, cardboard, and other materials.
Uh-huh.
You can then simulate user interactions
Right.
by moving these elements around
Okay.
and observing how people respond.
So it's like a low-tech, hands-on version of the digital product.
Yes. It's surprisingly effective.
Sounds fun. It can be fun.
It's like almost like a game.
A little bit, yeah.
There are several reasons why paper prototyping is so valuable.
Okay.
First of all, it's incredibly inexpensive.
Yep.
You don't need any fancy software or equipment.
Yep.
Just basic materials you probably already have lying around.
People already have, yeah.
That's a designer's dream,
For sure.
to be able to experiment and iterate freely without breaking the bank.
Exactly.
And second, it allows for that rapid iteration, just like sketching.
Yeah.
You can easily make changes and adjustments on the fly based on feedback. And third, it involves such a low level of commitment.
Sure.
You're not investing a ton of time and resources in building a digital prototype.
Right.
So you're more open to trying out new ideas and making changes based on feedback.
Oh, sure.
Okay, now, how do you actually go about creating a paper prototype?
Think of it like creating a stage
Okay.
for your user interactions. You'll need to sketch out each screen of your app or website on separate pieces of paper,
Right.
then cut out the interactive elements
Okay.
like buttons, menus, and images.
Gotcha.
And you can use tape or sticky notes to attach these elements to the screens.
Okay.
So they can be moved around and interacted with.
So it's a bit like creating a pop-up book
Yeah, a little bit.
with interactive elements that users can manipulate.
Exactly. And once you have your prototype assembled,
Yeah.
you can start testing it with users.
Okay.
Give them a task to complete,
Uh-huh.
such as sign up for an account or find a specific product.
Got it.
Observe how they interact with your prototype.
Yeah.
Take notes on their behavior. Ask for their feedback.
Cool.
Look for any areas where they get stuck or confused.
So it's all about observing those real-world interactions and using that feedback to refine your design.
Exactly.
But are there any downsides to paper prototyping?
Yeah, there are limitations for sure.
What are some of those?
First, paper prototypes can feel unrealistic. No matter how skilled you are with scissors and tape,
Right.
it's never going to truly replicate the look and feel of a digital product.
Right. So users might not be able to fully immerse themselves in the experience and provide accurate feedback.
Exactly. And second, paper prototyping can sometimes lead to false positives.
False positives, okay.
What seems like a great idea on paper might not work as well in a digital environment where you have to consider things like loading times, animations, and responsiveness.
So it's important to keep those limitations in mind.
For sure.
And use paper prototyping as a starting point.
Right.
Not the be-all and end-all of testing.
Exactly.
Now, once we've gone through this stage and gathered all this valuable feedback, it's time to move from the physical to the digital realm, right?
Yes.
That's where digital wireframes come in.
You got to digital wireframes, take those paper prototypes, and translate them into a more structured and polished format.
Okay.
Using software like Figma.
So it's like taking our rough sketches and turning them into blueprints. Ready for the digital construction to begin.
But before we jump into the world of digital wireframing, it's important to take a moment to reflect.
Okay, what kind of reflecting are we talking about here?
We need to ask ourselves 3 key questions.
All right, I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, first, is our paper wireframe complete?
Okay.
Have we fleshed out all those key elements and interactions?
Makes sense.
Second, have we actually received feedback on our paper prototype?
Okay.
Have we incorporated any insights or suggestions from users or stakeholders?
Good point.
And third, are we ready to consider basic visual cues?
Okay.
Are we starting to think about typography, spacing, and visual hierarchy?
Those are some excellent questions.
Thanks.
And if the answer to all 3 is yes,
then we're ready to dive into the world of digital wireframing.
All right, let's go.
And when creating those digital wireframes, there are a few key things to keep in mind.
Okay, what are they?
First, use actual content for important pieces of text.
Okay.
This helps you see how the content will fit within the layout.
Makes sense.
And ensures you have enough space for everything.
You don't want to end up with a beautiful design that can't accommodate the actual text.
Exactly.
That you need to include.
Right.
For large chunks of body copy, you can use placeholder text like lorem ipsum to represent the general flow and volume of the content.
Yeah.
But for headlines, calls to action, and other really crucial pieces of text,
use the real deal.
So it's about striking a balance between realism and efficiency.
Exactly.
And most importantly, focus on functionality at this stage.
Yes.
We're not concerned with adding images, colors, or other visual elements just yet.
The goal is to create a clear and concise representation of the structure and functionality of the product.
Got it. So how do we actually get started with digital wireframing?
Okay.
Are there any specific tools or resources you recommend?
Figma is fantastic for creating digital wireframes.
Figma, okay.
It's web-based, so you can access it from anywhere.
Convenient.
And it's becoming super popular in the UX community.
I've heard good things.
They offer a free starter plan.
Awesome.
Which is perfect for individuals and small teams just getting started.
I like that.
Plus, there are tons of great tutorials and resources available online to help you learn the ropes.
So it sounds like Figma has a pretty low barrier to entry.
Absolutely.
Once you've mastered the basics of Figma, you can start creating your digital wireframes.
Right.
So walk me through it. What are the key steps involved?
First, you'll need to create a new Figma file.
Okay.
And choose a frame that represents the device you're designing for, whether that's a desktop, a mobile phone, or a tablet.
Okay.
Then start adding your key elements.
Okay.
You can use Figma's shape tools to create boxes for images, lines for text, rectangles for buttons.
Right.
You can even use Figma's components feature.
To create reusable elements like navigation bars or buttons.
Makes sense.
Which can save you a ton of time and effort.
So you're building a digital version of your paper prototype, but with more precision and flexibility.
You got it. And as you're building out your wireframe, remember those Gestalt principles we talked about earlier?
Right.
Use those principles to guide your design choices.
Okay.
Ensuring that elements are grouped logically and visually appealing.
Makes sense. So we've created our digital wireframe in Figma. What's next?
How do we bring it to life?
Yeah,
Start
well,
testing those interactions.
that's where low-fidelity prototyping comes in, right?
You got it.
Hold on a sec.
Okay.
We talked about paper prototyping earlier.
Yeah.
How is low-fidelity prototyping different?
Okay, so both paper and digital low-fidelity prototypes kind of serve a similar purpose.
Okay.
But with digital prototyping, we can take things a step further.
Okay.
I'm intrigued.
With digital tools like Figma, we can actually link those screens together,
Oh, wow.
simulating how users would navigate through the product,
That's cool.
and even create basic animations and transitions.
Wow.
We're adding that layer of interactivity that
Yeah.
you just can't achieve with paper.
So it's like taking those blueprints and turning them into a working model,
That's a great way to put it.
even if it's still a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, exactly. The goal of low-fidelity prototyping is to quickly and easily test the functionality of your design.
Okay.
Before you invest time and resources in visual design and development,
Makes sense.
it's all about making sure the product flows smoothly
Right.
and that users can easily achieve their goals.
Okay, walk me through it.
Yeah.
How do you create a low-fidelity prototype using Figma?
It's easier than you might think.
Okay.
Figma has a fantastic prototyping feature
Uh-huh.
that allows you to connect screens together using hotspots.
Hotspots?
These hotspots are clickable areas that, when clicked,
Yeah.
will transition the user to another screen or trigger an action. Oh, cool.
You can also use overlays to simulate things like pop-up menus or modal windows.
So you're building a simplified version of the product that you can click through
Mm-hmm.
and test out the flow.
Exactly. And the best part is you can do all of this within Figma.
Oh, wow.
You don't need to switch between different tools
Right.
or learn any complex coding languages.
That's great.
It's all drag and drop,
Okay.
making it super accessible even for non-designers.
That's fantastic. And what about testing your prototypes on mobile devices?
You can do that too.
Oh, really?
Figma has a mobile app called Figma Mirror
Okay.
that allows you to view and interact with your prototypes on your iOS or Android device.
Oh, that's cool.
This is a fantastic way to get a feel for how the product will look and behave on a smaller screen,
Yeah.
considering those real-world usage scenarios.
I'm starting to see how powerful this tool can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes those static wireframes and turns them into something dynamic and interactive.
Uh-huh. It's like bridging the gap between concept and reality.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about low-fidelity prototyping.
Yeah.
It allows us to bring our ideas to life,
Uh-huh.
test them out with users,
Right.
gather that valuable feedback
Yeah.
before we invest in building the final product.
It's all about minimizing risk and maximizing the chances of creating a product that truly meets the needs of our users.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredible journey so far.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone from that initial spark of an idea
Right?
to sketching, paper prototyping,
Yeah.
now digital wireframing,
Mm-hmm.
and low-fidelity prototyping in Figma.
So much.
So already feeling more confident about tackling my own design projects.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right?
There's so much more to explore in the world of UX design.
That's exciting.
The key is to keep experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
keep iterating,
Yeah,
and most importantly, keep listening to your users.
well said.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of UX design.
It's amazing how far we've come already.
I know, right?
We started with that initial spark of an idea,
Yeah.
navigated the complexities of information architecture and user flows,
Mm-hmm.
and even brought our concepts to life with sketches and digital wireframes in Figma.
We did it all.
And we even got hands-on,
Yes.
exploring the magic of paper prototyping to test our ideas in a tangible way.
It's so cool.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And I have to admit, I'm feeling pretty inspired to start sketching and prototyping my own ideas.
Awesome.
But so far, we've been focusing primarily on the functionality,
Right.
the bones of the design.
The bare bones.
Now I'm really curious about the visual side of things.
Okay.
How do we take those wireframes and turn them into something visually appealing and engaging?
That's where the art of visual design, or UI design, comes into play.
UI design, okay.
We're moving from the blueprint to the interior design,
Oh.
adding those layers of personality and aesthetics that make a product truly delightful to use.
Okay, so it's like we've built the house,
Uh-huh.
and now it's time to decorate and furnish it,
Exactly.
choosing colors, textures, and furniture that reflect the homeowner's style and personality.
That's a great analogy.
Yikes.
And just like interior design, visual design encompasses a wide range of elements. Typography, color palettes, imagery, iconography, and more.
Wow, that's a lot.
Each element plays a crucial role in shaping the user's perception and influencing their behavior.
So it's not just about making things look pretty.
No, not at all.
How do you ensure that the visual design enhances the user experience rather than distracting from it?
That's a key consideration. Visual design is about finding the right balance between aesthetics and functionality.
Correct.
We want to create a visually appealing interface that's also intuitive and easy to use.
Makes sense.
For example, choosing the right typography can make a huge difference in readability and accessibility.
Okay, let's break down some of these visual design elements.
Sure.
First up, typography.
The art of fonts.
I know choosing the right font can make or break a design.
It really can.
What are some key things to consider when selecting fonts for a digital product?
You're absolutely right. Typography is a powerful tool. It sets the tone, conveys personality, and influences how easily users can read and understand the content.
Okay.
When choosing fonts for a digital product, we need to think about readability, hierarchy, and consistency.
Okay, so you don't want users squinting at their screens trying to decipher tiny text
No, definitely not.
or getting overwhelmed by a jumble of different fonts.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Legibility is paramount.
It really is. We want to choose fonts that are clear and easy to read at various sizes and across different devices.
Right.
Hierarchy is all about using different font sizes and weights
Okay.
to create visual distinctions between headlines, subheadings, and body text.
Makes sense.
This helps users scan the content and quickly understand the key messages. And consistency is about using the same fonts throughout the product to create a cohesive and professional look and feel.
So legibility, hierarchy, and consistency are like the holy trinity of typography.
You got it.
Okay. And what about color palettes?
Color. So important.
I've heard that colors can evoke specific emotions and associations.
It's true.
How do you choose colors that align with the brand and create the desired user experience?
Color is incredibly evocative. It can influence mood, evoke emotions, and even trigger memories.
Wow.
That's why it's such a crucial aspect of visual design. When choosing colors for a digital product, we need to consider the brand's personality, the target audience, and the desired emotional response.
So you wouldn't use bright, playful colors for a banking app,
Probably not.
but they might be perfect for a children's learning game.
Exactly. Each color carries its own set of associations.
Like what?
Well, for example, blue is often associated with trust and stability,
Right.
which is why it's a popular choice for financial institutions. Green is linked to nature and growth, making it a suitable choice for health and wellness brands. Red is often associated with excitement and energy, but it can also signal danger or warning.
Right.
It's all about choosing colors that align with the brand's message and resonate with the target audience.
I'm starting to see how much thought goes into selecting the right color palette.
It's more than just picking colors you like.
Right.
It's about understanding the psychology behind color
Yeah.
and how it can impact user perception and behavior.
And it's not just about individual colors.
No, it's about how those colors work together.
Okay.
We need to create a harmonious color palette
Right.
that's visually appealing and enhances readability.
Yeah.
We might choose one or two dominant colors and then use accent colors to highlight important elements or create visual interest.
So it's like creating a symphony of colors,
I like that.
each playing its part in creating a harmonious and engaging experience.
And then we have imagery.
Right. Images are everywhere.
We're bombarded with images every day.
We are.
So how do you choose images that stand out, capture attention, and enhance the user experience without being overwhelming or distracting?
Right. Because a poorly chosen image can really detract from the overall design.
Absolutely. When selecting images for a digital product, we need to consider relevance, quality, and style.
Okay.
First and foremost, the images should be relevant to the content and the target audience.
Makes sense.
We want to avoid using generic stock photos that feel impersonal and cliche.
I think we've all seen those cheesy stock photos of people in suits shaking hands or someone laughing alone with a salad.
Exactly. We want to choose images that feel authentic and relatable to the user. Quality is also crucial.
Of course.
We want to use high-resolution images that are sharp, clear, and visually appealing. And finally, we need to consider the style of the imagery.
Style.
Do we want to use photographs, illustrations, or a combination of both? Do we want the images to have a modern, minimalist feel or a more classic, vintage aesthetic?
So it's about finding images that not only support the content, but also align with the brand's personality and visual identity.
Exactly.
And speaking of visual language, let's talk about iconography.
Okay.
Those small but mighty symbols play a big role in guiding users through a digital product.
They really do.
What makes a good icon, And how do you ensure that icons are intuitive and easy to understand?
Icons are like little visual shortcuts, conveying meaning quickly and efficiently. They can represent actions, objects, or concepts, helping users navigate through a product and understand its functionality. A good icon is simple, recognizable, and consistent with the overall visual style of the product.
So you wouldn't want to use a complex, detailed icon for something like a save button.
Right.
Because it would be too visually heavy and difficult to decipher at a glance.
Exactly. Simplicity is key. We want to use clear, easily recognizable shapes that convey meaning instantly.
Okay.
We also want to ensure that the icons are consistent with each other in terms of style and level of detail. This creates visual harmony and makes the interface feel more cohesive and professional.
It's like creating a visual language that users can easily understand,
Yeah.
guiding them through the product without the need for lengthy text explanations.
Exactly. And that's the power of good visual design. It's about using visual cues to enhance usability and create a seamless and enjoyable user experience.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm starting to see how all these visual elements work together to create a cohesive and engaging user interface.
It's like a puzzle.
But how do we go from discussing these elements in theory to actually applying them in a real-world design?
That's where high-fidelity prototyping comes in.
High-fidelity prototyping, okay.
This is the final stage of the prototyping process,
Gotcha.
where we take all those visual design elements, the typography, colors, imagery, and iconography, and bring them together in a fully interactive prototype that closely resembles the final product.
So if low-fidelity prototypes are like rough sketches, high-fidelity prototypes are like polished paintings, ready to be displayed in a gallery.
That's a great way to put it. High-fidelity prototypes are all about creating a realistic and immersive experience for the user. They allow us to gather feedback on the final design, identify any remaining usability issues, and get stakeholders excited about the product's potential.
This sounds incredibly valuable.
It is.
But I imagine creating high-fidelity prototypes requires more advanced design skills and tools than those earlier stages of prototyping.
You're right. High-fidelity prototyping typically involves using professional design software like Adobe XD or Figma. These tools allow designers to create pixel-perfect designs, add intricate interactions, and even create animations and transitions that mimic the final product's behavior.
This is like we're stepping into the role of a digital architect,
I like that.
carefully crafting every detail of the user experience.
Exactly. And the level of detail and polish in a high-fidelity prototype can vary depending on the project's needs. Sometimes we might create a high-fidelity prototype for just a few key screens or features to test specific interactions or design choices.
Right.
Other times, we might create a comprehensive prototype that covers the entire product flow.
So it's about choosing the level of fidelity that's right for the project and the stage of development.
Exactly.
And once you have that high-fidelity prototype, how do you use it to gather feedback and refine the design?
High-fidelity prototypes are fantastic for user testing. We can put the prototype in front of real users, observe how they interact with it, and gather valuable feedback on everything from the layout and navigation to the visual design and overall user experience.
So you're essentially getting a sneak peek into how users will interact with the final product, allowing you to identify and address any usability issues before you invest in development.
Exactly. And high-fidelity prototypes are also great for stakeholder presentations. They allow us to showcase the product's vision and functionality in a compelling and interactive way, getting everyone on board and excited about the final product.
This deep dive has been amazing.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
We've covered so much ground, from those initial sketches and paper prototypes to the intricacies of UI design and the power of high-fidelity prototyping. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the art and science of UX design.
It's a fascinating field, constantly evolving and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in digital experiences.
And it's all about creating products that are not only beautiful, but also functional, intuitive, and enjoyable to use.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, in the next and final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the importance of user feedback and how to iterate on those designs to create truly exceptional digital products. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored this fascinating journey of bringing digital products to life. From those initial sparks of ideas to crafting these really detailed, high-fidelity prototypes.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
We can meticulously plan every button, color, and interaction. But without input from actual users, we're essentially designing in a vacuum.
You're absolutely right. User feedback is like the lifeblood of good design.
I like that.
You know, we can create the most visually stunning,
Okay.
technically sophisticated product,
Mm-hmm.
but if it doesn't meet the needs of our users,
Yeah.
it's ultimately a failure.
It's like baking a cake without tasting the batter.
Oh, yeah.
You might think it's perfect,
Right.
but until you get that feedback from someone else,
Yeah.
you never really know.
Uh-huh.
So how do we ensure we're getting that crucial user feedback throughout the design process?
Well, there's a whole toolkit of user research methods that we can use,
Okay.
each one offering unique insights.
All right, give me some examples.
Okay, one classic method is usability testing,
Usability testing, okay.
where we observe users as they interact with a prototype,
Right?
noting where they stumble, where they hesitate,
Yeah.
where they smile and where they frown.
You're looking for those little cues.
Yeah, it's like watching a play
Uh-huh.
and paying close attention to the audience's reactions.
So you're looking for those moments of delight,
Oh,
those
yeah.
moments of frustration,
Yeah,
those moments where the user seems lost or confused.
exactly. It's about understanding how people actually use the product,
Right.
not just how we imagine they'll use it.
And another powerful tool is A/B testing.
Oh, yes. A/B testing.
This is where we compare different design options
Yeah,
to see which performs better.
exactly. Let's say we're designing a landing page for a website.
Okay.
We could create 2 versions of the page,
Yeah.
each with a slightly different headline or call to action.
Right.
And then we show those versions to different groups of users
Okay.
by tracking metrics like click-through rates
Right.
or conversion rates.
Right.
We can see which version resonates better with the target audience.
It's like a design tournament,
Yeah.
pitting different versions against each other
Mm-hmm.
to see which one emerges victorious.
I like that. And then there are surveys.
Good old-fashioned surveys.
Yeah. A good old-fashioned survey can be a quick and efficient way to gather quantitative data from a larger pool of users.
Makes sense.
We can ask targeted questions about specific features, design choices, or user preferences,
Right.
giving us valuable insights to inform our design decisions.
So surveys are like taking the pulse of your target audience,
Mm-hmm.
understanding their needs, pain points, and preferences.
Exactly.
But with all this data pouring in, how do we make sense of it all?
Well, that's where the art of analysis and interpretation comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about collecting data. It's
Okay.
about understanding the why behind user behavior.
The why, okay?
Why did users click on this button instead of that one?
Uh-huh.
Why did they abandon their shopping cart at the last minute?
Okay.
Why did they give this feature a 5-star rating?
It's about being a detective,
Yes.
piecing together those clues to uncover the user's motivations,
Yeah.
needs, and pain points.
Precisely. And that's where empathy comes in.
Empathy.
We need to step into the user's shoes, see the product through their eyes, understand their perspective.
It's about really connecting with the user.
This empathy allows us to translate data into actionable insights, guiding our design choices and creating products that truly resonate with our users.
It's about seeing the product not just as designers,
Right.
but as users,
Yeah.
experiencing it through their lens,
Uh-huh.
and using that understanding to inform our decisions.
Exactly.
Now, once we've gathered and analyzed all this precious user feedback,
Yeah.
what do we do with it?
We iterate.
Iterate.
We take those insights
Yeah.
and use them to refine our designs,
Okay.
making those tweaks and adjustments
Uh-huh.
that create a more user-centered product.
So maybe a button needs to be repositioned,
Yeah.
a color palette adjusted,
Mhm.
or a feature rethought.
It happens all the time. User feedback guides us in making those crucial design decisions.
So it's back to the drawing board,
Uh-huh.
armed with this newfound wisdom
Right.
and a deeper understanding of our users.
It's a cycle.
It's like we're constantly sculpting and refining the product,
Yeah.
shaping it based on the feedback we receive.
Exactly. This iterative process is at the heart of good design.
It is a cycle, isn't it?
We test, gather feedback, refine, repeat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a continuous cycle of learning and improvement,
Right.
always striving to create the best possible experience for our users.
It's this beautiful dance between creativity and data,
I like that.
intuition and analysis,
Mm-hmm.
all driven by that desire to create something truly exceptional.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener will carry with them?
Design is never truly finished.
It's never finished.
There's always room for improvement.
Right.
And the best designs are those that evolve and adapt
Yeah.
based on feedback from the people who matter most,
And who's that?
the users.
The users, of course.
Always the users.
What a fantastic point.
Thanks.
It's a reminder that listening to our users is not just a step in the design process. but a fundamental mindset,
A way of life.
a commitment to creating products that truly serve their needs and enhance their lives.
Exactly.
So to our listener,
Yes.
as you embark on your own design adventures,
Yeah.
keep experimenting.
Keep iterating.
And most importantly,
Yes.
keep those feedback loops open.
Right.
Always listening and learning from your users.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Happy designing.
This has been an incredible journey through the world of UX design.
I agree.
We've explored the power of low-fidelity prototyping,
Yeah.
the importance of user feedback, and the magic of turning ideas into reality.
It's pretty cool.
We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration along the way.
Me too.
Until next time, keep designing, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely.